tell us what's your mission, and what became your vision?
Well, our mission is to help single parents uh, have reclaim their stability, and our vision is to help parents affected by abuse to break the cycle of poverty. Because in my experience, when you experience that type of trauma, you carry a lot of things with you that you think you cannot do or unable to do because of something somebody did to you. So our mission is to empower them, let them know that it is possible to move from poverty. You don't have to stay there. And I know firsthand that it is difficult. And so we walk through that. So part of our mission is to have life coaches. Part of our mission is to help them realize their value, their worth. And so our vision really is to have them in a transitional housing to where they can just not breathe and take in what has happened to them. And then when they're ready to move forward, we walk alongside of them and help them through the steps of what it looks like in moving forward, whether it's financial classes, whether it's therapy, whatever that looks like for the individual, because each individual's needs are unique.
So let me take it one step further. What I'm hearing from listening to the two of you is that you're creating an environment of crystal clarity. So when you have clarity, you now have the ability to move to the next step of what are the action steps that you're going to take.
For me, we were able to set clear goals. When Charles said, to mindset, and you have to have goals, and so it's so helpful to allocate gate tasks and also use our resources more effectively.
Okay. Charles, let's circle back. And how would you take all of this and add over what period of time does it usually take? What's the process of ensuring that the entire organization is all on the same page as you kind of walk them through this? And then what's the end point where you feel as though you've effectively delivered what they needed?
Yeah, so timing is something that's unique to each organization because it depends on the size of the organization, depends on the size of the team that's involved, what the objectives are, what the goals are. So all of that becomes subjective to the organization. However, in providing the guidance, then I would say if they don't have a clear mission and vision statement, we can usually get there within 30 to 60 days. And you say, well, it seems like a long time. Well, you'll come up with the initial mission and vision pretty quick. It's the refining that takes time, because as you refine, you understand, who you're serving, clients, customers, donors. Then those clients, customers, and donors, they also need to understand that mission and vision that you have. And what may be clear to you as an owner, as a founder, as the executive over the organization, what may be clear to you or your leadership team may not be clear externally. So you have to make sure that it's not only clear internally, but also clear externally. And so as you go through that process, we can usually get there within 30 to 60 days with some very strategic guidance. And then in the long run, it may take 6 months to have a fully vetted strategic plan. And so it doesn't happen overnight. I've seen strategic planning in organizations take as much as 12 months in large enterprise organizations. And, they start out in one place and it just takes forever. And a lot of that has to do with just being disjointed and what the delivery and what the objectives, what the goals are. So we just make sure that everything is jointed, tied together to ensure that we can accelerate the process of creating a strategic plan.
How often do you come back and revisit it?
I'm sorry, ask that again.
How often do you come back and revisit? So for example, you said larger organizations, it can take up to a year.
Yep.
But is this process also one that can change? In other words, once the mission and vision is set, is it set, or will potentially the environment have some impact on it, so it requires revisiting, or are you pretty much okay? Once you got it done, you're done?
No, you're never done. So, and the way I like to look at it, it becomes a living process, right? So even in an enterprise, large enterprise, where it may take 12 months, you're generally not executing everything that's in that strategic plan. So it doesn't mean that you can't start executing, but it also means that you're not executing everything. And for the smaller organization, you possibly are executing everything, but there may be, as you generate your plan, you may decide to postpone parts of the actions that are in that plan. And in doing so, the plan continues to live. And as it continues to live, what you have executed on, you may modify, because now you need to take a different approach. So you may tweak in order to have the right approach for the clientele that you serve.
So you bring up a really good point. What are some of the signals? And again, I'm going to come back and look at my years as a CFO, that something needs to be revisited. What would be a couple of the items that you'd be looking at? And by all means, I should also ask Marty, you can perhaps touch on this as well, is whether or not that's in something you've already experienced. But what guidance would you be providing, Charles?
Well, I think number one is that, are you getting the results? And are you seeing the results in a timely fashion? So as you put your metrics together, that will go along with your strategic plan, are you actually reaching the goals and objectives within that timeline? Or are you meeting the milestones? And if you're not, then it has to be, you have to go back and re-evaluate, readjust, so that the strategic plan then becomes viable and you're getting the results that you're looking for. And let me say this. So you may say, I'll say strategic plan, but it's really the components of that strategic plan, because you'll end up with multiple components, items that you're taking action on. And with each one of those, you need to track it. You need to understand if it's achieving what it needs to achieve. And if not, you have to make the appropriate adjustments. And, there are times when that adjustment may mean that that is not an approach you need to take at all. You need to basically dump that particular approach and to some extent start over. And so, that comes into play as well.
Marty, how does that resonate with you?
He's right on. For us, we have probably 4 or 5 programs going on every year. And when we discuss each program, he'll say, Charles would advise me on things on how to approach each program. And in reality, us as a nonprofit, clients need change, donations change all the time. And so we've had to adjust some of our strategic planning, for example, in our food pantry. Sometimes, when we partner with the food bank, sometimes the food bank just doesn't have the supply that we need. So we've had to revamp our hours, we've revamped our web pages, and sometimes we just have to, with fundraising, that's not working. So let's just not go that route because it just doesn't work for us. So then I'll reach out to Charles and say, hey, this avenue is not working for us. Then he'll give us another suggestion on how to approach that particular event.
Yeah, and I think the other item here is there's an underlying assumption listening to the two of you that the other objective that we've talked in past months, Charles, of efficient processes that have been in place, you're making the assumption that that's done so that it's easy to make the decision that a pivot is required. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because now you're kind of tying in the operational efficiencies that are needed. That because if your processes, your procedures, et cetera, if they're not tight and not on point, then you probably never will achieve what you have planned. So yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Okay. All right. I think that's an important one to be able to identify, because certainly if that's not in place first, the process is muddied because you're not sure, right, whether the problem is internal or is it in fact environmental.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's important to identify that. And it's important to have that foundation in place, but to identify, what are those factors that are keeping you from being a company, an organization, from being efficient as possible? Because without efficiency, then you're probably going to have what I would call waste, right? So time that's wasted, and then that also creates an issue with cost of how you deliver. And then, if there's a issue with cost, issue with the efficiencies, then you also have probably a problem with the quality of output or what's being delivered. So, all of those things become part of the operational efficiency quotient, if you will, and understanding, how do you get greater success? How do you have greater competency? And how do you optimize your resources effectively as possible?